Imagine living in a city where half the land sits below sea level, like a giant porcelain bowl waiting for the next typhoon to fill it to the brim. That's Tokyo. For centuries, floods have drowned streets, swallowed neighborhoods, and cost billions. Then, in the 1990s, Japan did something insane. They dug 50 meters beneath the world's most crowded metropolis and built the largest underground flood diversion cathedral ever conceived. It's not a tunnel. It's a subterranean temple of concrete and steel, with silos taller than skyscrapers, a reservoir longer than 2 football fields, and pumps that can drain an Olympic pool in 3 seconds flat. They call it the underground Parthenon, or simply Gcans. When the sky cracks open and rivers rise, this hidden giant wakes up, swallows hundreds of thousands of tons of water, and quietly spits it into the sea, while 14 million people above sleep through the storm. This is the story of how Tokyo turned its greatest weakness into one of the most jaw-dropping feats of engineering on Earth, and why the rest of the world is now watching. Story: Tokyo is a city built on a dare. Most of its eastern wards, Koto, Edagawa, Katsushika, sit below sea level, reclaimed over centuries from marshland and river delta. The Tone and Edo rivers snake around it like loaded guns. When typhoons arrive, the ground has nowhere to put the water. Concrete has replaced the old rice paddies that once soaked it up. By the late 20th century, Tokyo wasn't just vulnerable, it was a ticking hydrological bomb. The wake-up call came in September 1991. Typhoon Mireille slammed into Honshu, dropping torrential rain across the Kanto Plain. Rivers burst, subway stations became aquariums, and damage topped 500 billion yen. Politicians finally admitted that levees and pumps alone weren't enough. They needed to move water on a scale never attempted before, underground, out of sight, and fast enough to outrun the storm itself. In 1992, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism greenlit the Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel, Keiso Joryu Suimyaku in Japanese, mercifully shortened to Gcans by the engineers who built it. The price tag, 230 billion yen, roughly $2 billion in 1990s money. The timeline, 14 years. The ambition, pure insanity wrapped in precision. Construction began in secret, because nobody wants to hear that a 6.4-kilometer tunnel the width of a Boeing 747 is being drilled under their house. 5 colossal silos, each 65 meters deep and 32 meters across, were sunk along the Nakagawa and Korematsu rivers. These concrete throats act as intake points. When river sensors detect dangerous rises, massive gates open and water roars downward at speeds up to 70 kilometers per hour, vanishing from the surface in minutes. The water races through a 6.4 kilometers main tunnel, 50 meters underground, before spilling into the crown jewel, the underground temple. Officially the pressure-controlled water tank, it measures 177 meters long, 78 meters wide, and 25 meters high, big enough to park the Tokyo Skytree on its side. 59 concrete pillars, each weighing 500 tons, hold up the roof like the Parthenon reborn in a cavern. The scale is so absurd that maintenance workers ride tiny electric carts between the pillars, and the echo takes 7 seconds to die. For gas turbine pumps, the size of city buses and weighing 130 tons apiece, sit in a separate chamber. When the storm passes, they roar to life, moving 200 tons of water per second into the Edo River and out to Tokyo Bay. That's 12,000 tons a minute, or roughly 1 Olympic pool every 3 seconds. The turbines were adapted from jet engines. On full song, they sound like dragons gargling thunder. The system went live in 2006. Since then, it has been activated more than 100 times. Flood damage in the protected 80 square kilometers area has dropped by roughly 90%. A single event in 2019 saw the reservoir fill with 540,000 cubic meters, over 200 Olympic pools. Yet central Tokyo stayed dry. Economists estimate the project has already saved more than 2 trillion yen in avoided losses, paid for itself within 15 years. But nothing this big comes without controversy. Critics point to the carbon footprint. Those turbines burn kerosene equivalent to a medium-sized power plant when running flat out. Environmental groups worry about polluted urban runoff being dumped straight into the Edo River. Diesel, heavy metals, microplastics, the whole toxic soup. And then there's the existential question. Is even this monster enough for the future? Climate models predict typhoons will grow stronger and rainfall more intense. In 2019, Typhoon Hagibis tested the system to its limits. The reservoir hit 90% capacity. Engineers quietly admit that a once-in-200-year storm today might become a once-in-20-year event by 2050. Expansion talks are underway, new branch tunnels, larger silos, maybe even a second temple further downstream. But budgets are tight and land is scarce. Yet for all the debates, the underground temple has become something more than infrastructure. It's a pilgrimage site. When the system is idle most of the year, the public can book tours. You descend 118 steps into the cool, cathedral quiet chamber. Water drips from the ceiling in perfect rhythm. Shafts of light from the surface slice through the gloom, illuminating the forest of pillars. Visitors, school kids, foreign engineers, disaster preppers, stand speechless. One tourist from Florida was heard whispering, "We need this yesterday, and they might get it." After Hurricane Milton devastated Central Florida in October 2024, dumping 18 inches of rain in hours and breaking every river gauge from Tampa to Orlando, politicians started asking hard questions. Could something like GCAN's work in the Sunshine State? The geology is different, porous limestone instead of clay, but the principle holds. Give the water somewhere else to go, fast. Similar conversations are happening in Jakarta, sinking 25 centimeters a year, Dhaka, where monsoon floods paralyze the capital, and even London. Thames barrier upgrades are running decades behind schedule. The Dutch, masters of living below sea level, sent engineers to study the temple in 2018 and left visibly shaken. "We build dikes to keep water out," one reportedly said. "They built a city that swallows the water whole." Back in Casacabe, the control room looks like mission control for a moon landing. Screens track every gate, every pump, every centimeter of rise in the rivers above. Operators work 24-hour shifts during typhoon season, drinking canned coffee and watching red lines creep upward on graphs. When the moment comes, they press the button and the city exhales. That's the real triumph. Tokyo didn't just build a bigger drain. It built certainty. Parents in Edagawa Ward no longer move furniture to the second floor when the forecast darkens. Kids grow up thinking typhoons are just loud rain. The underground temple gave them the most precious luxury a megacity can have: permission to forget the danger lurking inches below their feet. Of course, the danger is still there. The temple is not invincible. One day, a storm will come that laughs at 200 tons per second. But when that day arrives, Tokyo will already have the blueprint. Dig deeper, build stronger, give the water somewhere to go. Because in the end, every great city is a negotiation with nature. Some negotiate with walls, some with pumps. Tokyo chose to negotiate with the biggest underground cathedral humanity has ever poured concrete into, and so far nature has blinked first. Next time a typhoon bears down on the Kanto Plain, spare a thought for the quiet giants 50 meters below, pillars standing in the dark, waiting for the sky to fall so the city above doesn't have to.